That truck.
Okay, so we're back. We have Roxy on the phone. I don't know why she didn't show up on the board, the template.
Yes, something is wrong with my Skype. It was dropping out
right.
all the time.
Okay, so you're there, so I want to finish the Kofsky article. So let's go back to that. You might have missed some of what I was talking about, right?
Yes.
But we'll just pick up where it is. Okay, so the guy, Kofsky, says, well, Zappa says, you have to start off. There are ways to move the youth to action through their brains and not through their glands. You have to start off part of the thing on the glandular level just to get their interest. And Kofsky says, as you do now. And Zappa says, but we're not nearly as glandular as most of the rock and roll bands because we're not selling sex that much. Kofsky says, well, you insult people too much to be really glandular. You challenge them. Zappa says, but we've got enough so they don't lose interest in us completely. If we tried to just be straight up there and sing our songs and go away, we wouldn't make it because we're old men compared to rock and roll standards. And there's no sex appeal to an old man singing a straight song. So if we do something that makes us bizarre, we got that happening for us. So when he says we want to get back to real issues, practical issues, that's after he sucked them in with his bizarre image, and then he tries to get them thinking. You know what I mean? So he's doing a total Al-Qaeda terrorist fake-out.
Yes, because I think he was maybe intuitively trying to communicate to all the different bodies of people.
I don't think he thought of it in terms of different bodies, but he certainly understood there were different kinds of people. He knew there was an ecology.
Yes, maybe not in a conscious way, but something in him knew that his communication was not only the verbal or the music.
Right.
There was also other types of communication going on, like he was aware of that because he did some advertisement, that there is like the subliminal.
Well, in an interview he did in '69, he's asked if he believes in ESP or psychic stuff, and he says no comment. So then Bob Marshall, 20 years later, asked him why did he say that he had no comment to say about the psychic world, and he said, because I don't discuss that with someone who wouldn't understand it. So he was saying that he understood the psychic world, the ESP world, and that would support your point that he knew that was going on too.
Yes, and I think he was already too far out. So if he started to talk about this type of new age topics, then he will not be taken seriously. And he knew very well that even he would not dare to do what you do.
Yes.
To say openly, I'm engaging iron.
Right.
And or the evergreens, because that's really a way of being like he was always being criticized like
for everything.
The full village. He's just saying, making weird stuff and entertaining people. He was. I think that the worst thing they could say about him was just to limit him to be an entertainer.
Yeah, and he did make that known. He did make that known that he's not trying to just be an entertainer. Okay, so let me now. It was interesting talking to David Wally through the years. He got disappointed in Frank, and he said I didn't like his audience he had in the '80s because the people were just interested in being entertained, and Zappa did great entertainment and even got better and better at it, but he couldn't get them interested in the ideas I mean, people weren't capable of doing ideas anymore by the 80s. So that's why he had to go into politics. No, hear that. That's why he had to go into politics. That was the only way to get serious.
Right, but many people thought he was doing like a very sophisticated stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
And then when he went into politics, they thought it was a big joke too, like.
Yeah.
No, they were impressed on the censorship issue. They didn't think of him becoming a presidential candidate, but they were impressed that he stood up for his business and for anti-censorship. They had the normal cliche response to that. Now he wrote in his autobiography about failure, and he said he was a big failure in many ways. So in terms of his big ambitions, as we're seeing in the Frank Kosky interview in '67, he certainly didn't get anywhere that he thought he could get to with the youth vote.
Yes, and there are several interviews when he's debating with these very conservative people, mostly about just freedom of speech. He's not saying, and they're trying to put things on his mouth, like you're just talking about dirty things and sex and masturbation and yes, it's really pathetic that he had to debate with people who will not understand. But he was willing to do that because really he wanted to change the environment. And he was doing everything he could in the musical arena. Really, he had already changed a lot. He was the first to do many things and to expand the musical horizon. But he was ready to go beyond it.
Right. And he talks about, I don't know if you heard the quote, he says, we just need to update the Constitution or get back to the constitutional issues while recognizing how the world has changed. We want to preserve the American traditions, but he knew that it didn't work anymore the way it was. And he didn't want to change.
Yes, from what we know from Ian, I think it's very interesting that he was focusing in America, which is like a parallel world nation that came to be from another place, and we don't really know what is America and what's the role of America, but it seems that it's very important in Ireland too. And he was focusing first in changing what had to be done, changed in America. So he was in a way fertilizing the soul for you, for what's to come.
Yes, and he wanted to change the content to get the bureaucratic structure modernized. He recognized there was nothing wrong with television and what was happening as a multimedia environment. But he said people weren't educated enough to understand how to have poise within that situation. So he thought maybe if educators and politicians talked more intelligently about the situation and weren't disgusted by things like, for example, he said that Rush Limbaugh just talked trivial stuff. Yet Rush Limbaugh, for many Americans, talks about the real issues. So there was a conflict in Frank about his certain image of what civic life was, and he ignored the McLuhan multimedia effects that created a different kind of people around him. He was sort of like Bob Dylan, who himself said that he felt quite remote from Americans. They weren't like what he knew when he was growing up. So there's something where he missed some of the points that Einden is on about. But,
yes, because even outside America, we have everywhere a fascination with Americana, with the pop culture. It has invaded the whole world.
Yeah.
And it's like the thing with media. There is a lot of things that can be attractive and fascinating. This kinetic, the dynamic, and just the idea of the place where the dream can be true. Like the place where you have no limits and you can reach and achieve the goals you dream about.
Yeah,
that's a big motivation for many people to migrate to America.
Yeah,
and I think he really valued that, and he somehow wanted to preserve that part of America.
Yeah, and create a little justice.
He was criticizing everything, but at the same time, I think he was a big patriot.
Okay, so he was a critic enhancing psychological awareness, but he also dealt with sociology, and he talks about that. You know, he talks about the difference between sociology, media, and psychology. So he was quadrophenic. He was working on several revolutions.
Yes, I think I said he was a real prophet once. He will,
yeah.
Like you said before too. He will be like the new version of John the Revelator.
Right.
The John the Revelator of modern times, of the replay.
Yeah. Let me just get into this Kofsky interview. It sort of wraps up his political motives. So, you know, Kofsky's saying you can't be sexy, too glandular, because you insult people too much. And Zappa says, well, we want to keep them interested in us, so we have to be bizarre because we're old men. So then Kofsky says, the thing that occurs to me at this point is we know the powers that be in this country are pretty much opposed to people revolutionizing their society. Witness the way Johnson deals with Vietnam when the Vietnamese try to do that. Do you think that those same powers would be any more lenient with you if it looked like you were trying to take everything they had away from them? Now look what Zappa says. First of all, it will never look to them like I'm going to take everything away from them, because I'm not taking it all away from them. I have no intention of taking it all away from them. So he accepted certain American structures. You could say he was visually biased and had no problem with an industrial consumer society. But he would have to do eventually with the changing of people's natures that McLuhan talks about, as the media made people, quote, dumber or more lost in their subjectivity. It would have been interesting if he stayed alive to deal with a population that was staring in their texting apparatus all day long. You know, what would he think of America 2015? I almost think that he couldn't have taken it.
Yeah.
Okay, so then he says he won't take it all away from them. So that's what some radicals didn't like about Zappa. You know, he believed in private property and was not a total socialist. So Kofsky says, well, taking their power, I didn't necessarily mean taking their personal possessions, but their power right now is the ability to command what the man on the street thinks through their control of the mass media and so on and so forth. Now there's Kofsky not understanding what McLuhan was saying. I mean, the media do not control people today. There's total freedom to express yourself in any way possible. But to translate it into the outer kingdom and deal with the bureaucracy of bureaucratic power, the people have no say in that. But do they have to have a say in it? So Zappa says, that's where I have one basic human drive on my side that they can't defeat, greed. You see, they're so greedy, and the powers that be are not necessarily the government. So there he is talking about the hidden part. But you're talking about the industry and the military and all, and that's greed-motivated activity. Industry wants to make money, and I'm getting into a phase now where I'm being used by industry to move products. He admits that he is used by the music industry to sell a certain type of image. A lot of the industries now are aware of the fact that they're in a vicious cycle. In order to sell their goods to the youth market, which accounts for the major market of most American products, that same market that buys most of the records, you have a weird situation where, in effect, record companies especially are helping to disseminate the information which will cause the kids to wake up and move and eventually destroy what they stand for, and they can't help it. Now, by the 90s, there were a couple books about how the whole alternative culture was compromised. So Zappa doesn't see that coming. Doesn't see that they're not going to be freed by getting this new information. And the people became decentralized anyways. You see?
Mm-hmm.
See my point I'm making with slightly a McLuhan point?
Yes.
So then Kofsky says, Ralph Gleason tells me that this is happening to kids in the Haight-Ashbury in particular by simply turning their back on big corporation society and going out and creating a parallel society of their own. Now, Zappa is correct in what he says. He says, that doesn't work. They can't survive. That's like saying, quote, we're going to secede from the Union. We'll have our own town secede from the Union. That's stupid. So he has a practical understanding of the interdependence of all the different parts of society and the different environments, right? He knows you can't drop out.
And it's like LaRouche and other people that really saw a change is needed, and they really, really were looking for solutions to the situation. But or McLuhan and they really look everywhere, studied everything, and at the end the solution is not only political. It goes beyond. It's organic. It has to do with the ISIL and the completion. Otherwise, only political cannot be solved. That's not the solution. And
let me tell you something. Let me respond to that. Arnold Toynbee in his Playboy interview, he said there were three kinds of intelligence: scientific intelligence, artistic intelligence, and spiritual intelligence. So let's look at these McLuhan, Zappa, LaRouche. They're usually doing one or the other, or at most two. I would say that Ion is spiritual intelligence. Zappa was artistic intelligence, and LaRouche was scientific intelligence. They have three kinds of intelligence that have institutions around them. That give you an idea?
Yes, and you absorb all of them, and you studied all of them.
Right.
And you have a more complete solution. You're offering what everybody has been trying to offer, a solution, the real solution. But the thing is, you are not the savior. Everybody has to step in the power and change. But Zappa was a big influence on the past generations, because he started to bend, like he said, the minds.
Yeah. He also set an example of doing it on your own, or at least becoming spiritually aware on your own. Not like he just blatantly says, you want to hurt your kid, send them to school or send them to a religion. That would appeal to a lot of the young kids now in America because they're atheists as a fad.
Yeah, and I think he had a lot of integrity because he never sold out. He always stand up for his music and the whole work he was presenting, which was also his big agenda.
Right. So Zappa says it's stupid to drop out and secede from the country. And Kofsky says, in a sense, I agree with you, but it also seems to me that there's a certain element of wishful thinking in what you propose, too. In my rigid Marxist bag, so this is 1967 when there were still Marxists around, in my rigid Marxist bag, it does seem to me that the power elite or ruling class, when you get to that point where it looks as though you are somehow going to emancipate the population from taking orders from them, they simply aren't going to let you have it that easily. They're going to try to do the same thing they tried to do to Fidel Castro or to Ho Chi Minh. Zappa, that's all a question of how you perceive what I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to take power. Koski, no, I'm not saying you're trying to take power, but you are trying to. And then Zappa interrupts and says, you originally brought up the question of power. Now, power is a thing that bears on this case, but what we're really talking about is modifying the system just so it works. You must have modified the system. The present principles of democracy that were originally set up when they invented it aren't being applied today. And I think that with an educated population, democracy works. So what we need are things that would change the shape of education. Now, there is a biography of Zappa by, I forget his name, but mid-'80s, and he called Zappa Don Quixote. And he is like a Don Quixote going after windmills because these sort of liberal humanist sentiments get a better educated population, democracy works. He's missing the huge storms that the media world that McLuhan is describing is bringing in.
Yes, and in another interview, he also mentions that we need help to solve the problem. But he talks about mental health. He says when people is mentally healthy, then their decisions and their actions are okay, and then things fall on their own. But in a situation where most of the society are taking drugs, alcohol, and psychotropics, and the decisions like McLuhan was saying in the view line also, of this management that is taking cocaine and drinking their cocktails and are being promoted to the level of their incapacity.
Yeah, their incompetence. The Peter principle.
Yes. When the management is sick, there cannot be a solution.
Right.
And he was already seeing also that health is very important for the completion.
Yeah.
And that was like the first step in the ionic, is to reset
the health,
to gain your health, and then to bend your mind.
Right.
And it's like a conversation between your inner kingdom and your outer kingdom. You are resetting not only yourself, but your environment starts to change. And I think this has to do with the change in your frequency. Things cannot stay as when you were not healthy, because many things that were affecting your health had to go, and you had to start making these very radical changes, and that's the thing when many drop out, because this is the thing. The revolution is your own environment first, your own inner and your own outer. You have to do the changes first in your own immediacy.
Right. Okay, so he says what we need are things that would change the shape of education. So Koski says, I didn't mean that you personally wanted to take power, but I do think that you meant that you wanted to undermine the power of those people who have it now, the power to control people's minds. So Zappa says, it's like this. A person likes to feel useful in the society. People have certain things that they can do. I happen to have a knack for doing that sort of thing, and if I can apply it to good use, it gives me satisfaction just to know that I'm functioning. Where normally, I wouldn't have a chance to use my trade because what I can do is spread out over a broad range of activities. I like to do them all because it feels good to do that. If I can help at the same time, that's groovy. If it works, fine. If it doesn't work, at least I kept myself occupied for a while. So he's avoiding a bit of what Koski's saying. So then Koski says, so in other words, this isn't some rigid prescription that you're trying to force on people. Zappa screams, no. If I thought it was like that, I'd be wearing armbands or be out there with a costume on, the robe, and doing it with some showmanship. But we're taking our time about presenting our case, and the scene itself has been developing at a rate. Seems like it's developing slower than I wanted it to. but I'm not in a position where I can govern the growth rate. Kosky, no, isn't it a question of feedback from your audience to you, I would imagine? Zappa says yes and no. We keep track of what's going on out there, but what they do and why they say doesn't have a hell of a lot of bearing on what we're going to do for them, except that I try to forecast certain social political events. There he is saying he's trying to forecast stuff. We have some material that's going into the next album about the concentration camps in California. You're seeing this before the world even knows what the tune is, because I turned these out the other day. These are going on the album. The album's called The Mothers and Lenny Bruce, which is due for September release. Kosky, well, how does that go? Is it going to be real Lenny Bruce on there? Zappa says, yeah, I'm editing the tapes of Lenny's and interspersing these special tunes, so we come up with an oratorial thing. And the name of the album is Our Man in Nirvana. Kosky says, I suspected that you and I had a lot in common, and one of the things we had in common was being turned on by Lenny Bruce. Zappa says, yeah. Kosky says, besides growing up in Los Angeles, putting twin pipes on our car and reprimering the right front fender and going to drive-ins, I wonder if anybody understands all of that kind of thing. Zappa says they don't. Kosky says that whole album is Southern California. Freak Out is Southern California. Nobody else knows what a swimming pool is. Zappa says, no, this is a new type of lyric that I'm getting into. These are also socio-political things. This is straight bizarre lyrics based on, and he says, I made research tapes of behavior of some 17-year-old kids in Ontario, California, and this is based on those tapes. So I don't know what that is. That's interesting. How long do you carry some of this stuff around in your head? And he says, well, Call Any Vegetable, for example, was written 2 weeks after we finished Freak Out when we were in Hawaii, and it took a year to learn how to play it. Son of Susie Cream Cheese took a year to learn how to play. Can you tell why? The time, it's fantastic. It's 4 bars of 4/4, 1 bar of 8/8, 1 bar of 9/8, okay? And then it goes 8/8, 9/8, 9/8, 8/8, 9/8, and then it goes 8/8, 4/8, 5/8, 6/8, and back into 4/4 again. To get it together now, we just toss it off and it becomes a flop. To get it together now, we just toss it off and it becomes a flop. Then Kosky says, are there a lot of splices on Absolutely Free? I thought I detected places where there were very abrupt changes, and it hadn't been like you paused and changed tempo, but that you'd splice one part into another. Am I right about that? That says, oh yeah, there was a lot of editing. Since that time, we've adjusted our playing so we can sound like we've been edited. I like that effect. Kosky, when I've heard jazz groups change tempos, they usually pause and make it quite apparent that the tempo is being changed. Zappa says, that's silly, though. Kosky says, yes, it is silly, because you lose the impact, says Zappa. Yes, why are their lyrics Absolutely Free? And Frankie goes, more intelligible? He goes, no, let me back up. I've heard rumors, I know rumors are unreliable, that there was some censorship problem making this album. Zappa says, yes, there were. Kosky, and I wondered if you deliberately made the lyrics unintelligible. Zappa says, no, the censorship problem was not the lyrics being unintelligible on the record. I wanted to print the libretto as the liner notes. That was my next question. Why wouldn't they let you? Zappa says there's a legal difference between what's on the record and what's on paper. In other words, you can say it and not get. Zappa says you can sing it, and that's part of a work of art, but the liner notes to an album are not. You can't defend that in court as a work of art. And Kosky, wow. Yeah, you can't, or not. Kosky goes, who's the genius who decided that? Zappa says, the MGM legal department. And this is the one that'll really kill you. You see that copy of the libretto of Absolutely Free you've got in your hand? Look what they censored out of it. The word 13. So there's this line, she's only 13 and she knows how to nasty. From brown shoes don't make it. You know what they took out? The word 13, not nasty. Yes, they want us to say that she was, and he has, look, he quotes, magnificent instrumental, ejaculation number 1. They had to cross it out and change to climax rather than ejaculation. So he goes, you dig? They wanted to change, I like to make her do a nasty in the White House lawn. They wanted to change it to, and Kosky says, White House bathroom. And Zappa says, no, I'd like to make her do the crossword puzzle on the back of TV Guide. Kosky says, are you kidding? And he says, read it. You want to know something else? MGM says, quote, now we know, you and I both know that you want to make her do a nasty on the White House lawn can mean only one thing. You want to make her shit on the White House lawn. Kosky goes, oh, wow. Zappa says, that's what he said. Quote, now look, there are some things that are in bad taste. Kosky, Napalm, of course, is perfectly in good taste. Zappa says, like, dig the way these guys think, man. Also, quote, she's only 13, I hear she gets loaded. MGM says, we might run into trouble because in some states, and Kosky says, you're not supposed to drink until you're 18, you know. In some states, the legal drinking age is 18. I reviewed the record, and I reviewed it without the libretto, and I admit I was very uptight by not having the libretto at hand. And I kind of thought that this might be some kind of publicity or money-making gimmick on your part. Zappa says, the whole logic behind that is the only way you can teach an American is by example, because they've gone past the point where they'll believe what you tell them, post-information society. Then he says, that's the way it is. They have to get it from a different source. They have to be shown by example. So in other words, the American advertising system, which is one of the main evils of contemporary society, the whole idea of making people buy things that they don't need is morally wrong. And the only way you're going to make them know, is to do it, really overdo it. Buy, sell, cram, until they finally say, what the fuck is this? Now, the way the libretto is going to be handled is it's going to be printed in the Evergreen Review, I believe. Either Evergreen or Ramparts. The idea is to carry the whole liner notes, and it will also be available in booklet form if they want to send for it.
It's amazing, but 2 days ago I posted on Facebook a GIF of the David and God is playing with his penis, just like.
God, what did you say?
God is pointing his finger.
Yes.
To David.
Yeah.
Usually to the hand, but in this case, God was playing with his finger and David penis. And Facebook censored that, and they sent me a message that was, in German it said, unangemessen, I don't know, not proper or not right.
Right. Wow.
And it's this type of censorship is still going on. It's amazing.
Right. Oh, my phone's going. But I noticed, I think it was your mother. She says, is that all you're going to do on your birthday? Did you see that?
I didn't see that.
That's what she was asking, right? I got that right in the translation. She couldn't believe you were. She thought, you put the costume, the mask on, and then she says, is that all you're going to do? Right? Is that what she was saying?
Show your bra?
Yeah. Yeah, that was cute. So it goes. This is a very long interview. It's pretty good, but what I'm made up of, my revolution has to have a bit of the artistic intelligence. That's Zappa. Has to have a bit of the scientific intelligence. Maybe that's Larouche and whatever other science. And then they have to have the spiritual intelligence of the evergreens, cosmic. That's what I've put together. So yes, this is where I'm quite comprehensive in this revolution. At the same time, got a sense of humor, and I'm detached about it.
That's what I was asking Ian about coherence, because for me the coherence is like this type of intelligence at all levels, but he didn't agree with the word coherent.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So maybe the word is intelligent systems where things are not biased by our perception or the labyrinth of our mind, but are taken from the decisions are taken from the knowing,
right,
or from this intelligence that is part of the completion.
I'm just calling in on the other line. This phone's going dead. But, Michael Brown came in and he didn't stay around. See, people in the end are isolated and by themselves. And people are ornery. And they'll keep their sense of independence. Oh, I got to do this. Bob Neverick, pound key. Conference is in something. So then you go, Then you go, I'm now a host. Okay, so then I take this, I'll turn that off. Take this out. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, good. So when that on the Zappa thing we posted on alt fan Frank Zappa, they said you're trying to hijack Zappa for your own scene in Iondom, and that's what we are doing. Now, this could be seen as aggrandizement.
First Zappa, then the whole environment.
Yeah. First we take first we take Manhattan, then we take Berlin. So, yes, first we take Manhattan, then we take William Aaron Thompson, then we take Arthur Coker, then we take McLuhan, then we take Babe Russell, then we take LaRouche. That's what we're doing here. And then Ion shows up, and Ion tries to take us.
Yes.
Hey?
We are fusing. That's the thing. It's the most amazing.
Right.
We are fusing. We're finally fusing with the media that is expanding.
You know, there is no world because in the end, you become happy if you can handle your situation of what you are and your powers and all that. That's the main thing. That's what I would say. That's you're spiritually aware of yourself. You've come to some kind of, you don't want to say ego death or any kind of death, but you've come to an understanding. And you don't know when anybody gets there unless they somehow can demonstrate a pretty good vibe. So that's the ultimate thing. But then you got social mortar. So you have Frank trying to fix the social mortar world, make it more efficient. But the social mortar is always creating upset. So we're talking away here for
I think
18.
LaRouche and Zappa and McLuhan, they were all really brilliant. But they were missing the ionic.
Right. And
but now maybe as ghosts working on your conversations, they can see it.
Yes, as ghosts. Now, we got a few other people.
Yeah.
Do you want to say anything, anybody? Are you trying to say something, Ginny? Yeah, I see a red thing coming out. No? I don't know if anybody is here. There are a few phone calls registered, but nobody's speaking.
Bob, I did want to tell you. Can you hear me?
Go ahead. Yeah.
I just did want to tell you that I emailed you that link, and I emailed it to myself, and it came through. So hopefully you can get it on your email, and then you'll have that whole series of interviews I've been talking about.
Oh, great. Where did you email? Did you email it to me personally?
How Ionic?
Yeah, good. So you found it.
I just was experimenting, and I emailed it to myself, and it came through, and they all came through, so I went ahead and emailed it to you. I don't know what you mean I found it.
But I don't know what you mean when you say you emailed it yourself. How did you find it?
Well, I mean, I always had it up. I just wasn't really sure how to get it to you. So I highlighted it and then copied it and then went to my email address and pasted it, and then it came up, so I did that for you.
Okay. Yeah, you're talking about simple emailing, creating an email.
Yeah. Yes.
So what do you think of my revolution? What are you going to do about it?
Well, I think it's amazing. I mean, like I said, I've been studying this stuff all my life, and the one thing I do know is even if you guys go away, it all goes away, and I can't listen to you anymore, I'll still keep evolving. I'll still keep ascending. And I just...
No, you're going to need us in the final turn. No, I'm sorry, Leslie. You're fucked if we go away. You will not make it.
I don't believe that. But the only thing I really believe truly know in my heart is that, nope, I'm going to keep on ascending no matter what.
Well, that's what I was just saying. That's the individualness of reality. that in the end it's all just about you. It's just your own creation.
I think that's what Carolyn came on and said, but you poo-pooed her, so she quit talking.
Oh, what were you going to say, Carolyn? I definitely poo-pooed her. I poo-poo her all the time.
It was like an hour and a half ago before I went for my walk.
What'd you say?
I forget what I say, Leslie.
Well, that's what you said. You go, basically we're all figuring out that it's all inside of us, so we can do it for ourselves. So we don't need all this junk, all this stuff we've been talking about for weeks and weeks, and Frank Zappa.
That's right. We should just delete the whole history of Payday. We don't need it.
But it's like the RNA drops and all the conversation does help reinforce it, because the mind will forget. The mind will, go on to the next little gimmicky thing that attracts it. So if you want to stay on track, I thought you were going to say you could just listen to the archives if we went away, because the archives will always be there.
Which hopefully I do have on my computer, and that won't go away. So, yes, that's, yeah. Who knows? But, you talk about the time when the computers may just shut down. And on that note, is there ever going to be a time that we can order, like, say, a gallon of RNA drops at a time? No?
Yeah, I don't know about that, but, I mean, it's a good question.
Okay, so, Roxy, what do you say to what Leslie's saying? Do you have another twist on that? Or did you get disconnected? She might have dropped off. Hey! Wait a minute.
What?
I disconnected her when I disconnected the other phone. I forgot. That's right. Okay, so I got to go. So are you on my phone, Carol?
It went off.
Yeah. Okay, you there, Roxy?
Yes.
Okay, I wanted to get you to interact with Leslie. So.
Hey, Leslie.
Hey.
Okay, so there seems to be an email from Sheila. What's she saying? She goes, the 1%ers. Charlie and I are in the food and fashion edition of a local magazine. Very 1%.
Yeah, they're looking very chic. I just saw her picture on Facebook.
Did you say
wonderful.
sick or slick?
Chic.
S-I-C-K?
Very chic.
Very sick?
Chic.
Oh, chic. Yeah, chic.
Yeah.
Yeah, Charlie's, Sheila has been not attending church the past 3 months, and she's been off building up her social mortar profile by being in this fashionable restaurant. You see this, Carol?
They look wonderful. Very elegant.
Very elegant, yes. So Leslie's saying, if we go away, she can...
Somebody said, you look like royalty.
Somebody said that? Do they have comment?
Yeah, they look really good, yeah.
Well, Charlie's not that great looking. Let's be honest.
She's elegant.
Charlie's a beef ball. Look at his face. That's ridiculous, Charlie.
Oh, that's pretty.
Well, she is, but not Charlie.
He looks very distinguished.
No. Charlie, your chakras are all out of balance. Your fucking crown chakra's heading out of your left earlobe, and your sacral chakra's not working
You're
good.
You're jealous.
No, I'm not. I'm being honest. This is the way Charlie looks at me. This is the way I look at Charlie. And he said that he would never relate to me.
They both are wonderful.
Anyways, so she said that she could go on ascending if we disappeared. Do you have any different view of that?
No, I think once you start the process, it's like it just goes on.
Did you get that, Leslie?
Yes. Thank you for not popping my balloon, Roxy.
Well, it doesn't work the way, if I present it the way I just did. You had to go into the debate we were having.
All right, well, okay then, Bob, don't go away, okay? How's that?
No. We might have to go away, so...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so you'll be on your own, and Carol says that in the end we're on our own. But and then Roxy says
it's part of the process, because like one starts becoming too dependent, for example, on Ion, on what he's saying, and this helps things to evolve and not to become a cult or like law or.
Well, it becomes your rate
I think
of
it's very
speed.
healthy that Ion, I know they're communicating, but they seem as they're gone or they're not there, but they're there, but they're not.
You feel that they're not. You feel they're not there right now, in proportion.
No, I know they are here and they're communicating.
Yeah.
It's not. They're not talking on the radio.
Right.
But they're still communicating.
Okay, so listen to this. So if I engage Ion every other day, I've been doing it for years, am I dependent on Ion? Well, if I work at a rapid speed, I get involved with Ion for an hour or two every other day, affected by it for a couple more hours, then drop it and start reading LaRouche or something, or just doing something else, and I've dropped it. I'm not dependent on it. But then the next day I start over again, or 2 days later, and I get involved with Ion, depending on what he's saying, or become dependent, and then drop it. Is that a fast cycle? Whereas you're saying, okay, you don't want to get too dependent on Ion, so you take 6 months off, and then you come to an effect on yourself, and then you say, well, I think I can go back and talk to Ion, but I'm not going to fall for it anymore. And it's a slower thing.
The thing is, each person has a different process. Or, I mean, we are all doing this ascension. It's very individual how things are working for each of us and what's happening. And
hey, we said some interesting things about Zappa way back, many hours ago. Maybe we should post the whole show as a Zappa thing, because...
yes, actually, we talk about Zappa all the time.
Right.
Wow.
And so Mateo has Payday Review. There was 2 hours of music, 3 hours rewrite, 2 hours on McLuhan, 8 hours on Zappa, and 2 hours on other ? 17 total hours. And now there's another hour because he did that an hour ago. So maybe we'll just make the whole show, even with the McLuhan, because we said some good Zappa stuff at the beginning that I said, let's save it for the official, but maybe, what do you think?
But it's part of the continuous continuity. It's really all...
Good point.
Part of the conversation.
Right. We don't have to be talking about Zappa.
Related.
We don't have to be talking about him to be dealing with him.
Yes, I think even the Dulan was connected to many of the topics we were talking later on.
And I would be like Walter Boert. Roxy, you're not going to find anybody who gets what you're saying in your Zappa series. You haven't met them yet. You might get 1 or 2 people, maybe someone from the 20-year-old generation.
Yes, but we're just talking for the 1%ers now.
Yeah, that's right, the 1%.
We're not assisting the whole humanity.
Did you hear Ion last week or this week? I think it was last week. He said, Bob is the head of the 99%ers. Did you hear him say that? He did. He categorized me as what I say I am, union leader of the 99%ers. He did not include me in the 1%. That was funny.
You're the mother superior.
What did you just say? What did you just say, Leslie?
Well, was he just needling you, or was he serious, or what? He kids you.
You can never. I don't know with High On. He needles. He's serious. He considers me a total fuck up. Other times I'm great. What do you say, Carolyn? I don't know if he's that precarious, that fickle with you, Carolyn, but he is fickle with me, right?
Yeah, I think he feels he has to keep you in some sort of line because you're so off the charts and a loose cannon. So he just mimics your loose cannonness back to you.
Yeah.
But I think that he does that to everybody.
Yes, that's true.
He has said things to me like, I'm not that intelligent.
I rather slow.
A lot of things that it's just like a way of bending your mind and
bending your mind, right? Now I'm thinking, does he put down Carolyn? Do you get
well, on the sex bits, he uses me as the prude, Puritan foil to bounce off. So that's my role. I'm the machete and the prude and the one who...
You're the actual Illuminati bitch.
And the one who does all the work and lets everybody know it.
Well, no, you don't let people know it. You let me know it, but you don't make an issue of it with other people. No,
I've said it before on Payday.
What? I'm doing all the work, and Gene, you're doing fuck all, Gene. I've never heard that.
Yeah, like that.
Gene says the whole show is a Zappa show, Bob. Even Ginny's questions early in the morning. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we're going to have to... We posted 7 hours. This week you're going to get an 18-hour Zappa hour.
Yes, and the most amazing is that there is almost no Zappa music. It's really Zappa from another angle.
Yeah, we like the idea of Zappa.
Hidden ground of Zappa.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, I think Bill's
that was a huge
you.
part of Zappa. His ideas and insights were amazing, truly amazing.
Well, we've just been going through criticizing the Cossie thing, and in some ways it's not that amazing. He's too much of an American. He doesn't have enough college anthropology. He doesn't have enough. I mean, he's a brave person and everything. He's
maybe that's
almost as great as me. He's almost as great as me, and that's being something. But the thing is, I can criticize, and I don't think I could have had nutrition studying Zappa on the idea level as much as I got out of McLuhan, through the 80s and 90s. But if I was a musician and could understand music the way Roxy does, then maybe I'd get nutrition from him. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I don't get that part. Of him. I just enjoy the music.
But isn't that nutrition?
I think it's not necessary to understand the music.
No, you just get the vibe, and that's what.
Well, I get the entertainment part, and he doesn't want to be limited to entertainment. But if you get to go there, Frank, you're not completely as knowledgeable as you think you are.
But you get the intellectual part too, in his complex clairvoyance and his, how he's done this from day one. What do you call that?
Well, he's got the spiritual intelligence, Roxy says.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's an interesting thing. There's a guy named Craig Pincus who I met 40 years ago and was a lawyer consultant with Frank. And then he eventually got into the music industry through Frank. And I called him up a couple of years ago and said, you've got a story. He's very involved with Frank that nobody knows. He said, well, I have a deal, a contract with Gail. I would only talk to you and record it if Gail gave me permission. And so
So Gail's gone. Get in there, Bob.
And Craig Pincus, I have to be polite and wait a few months. You know, he can't just rush in the day after. Mm-hmm. But it would be interesting to get he knows a lot about Frank on another level because they did industry law together, and he has a lot of interesting things. So I was thinking about him the other day, Craig Pincus. So I'm just dropping it into this show for the Zappa fans, or Zappa fanatics, to say, who can get to Craig Pincus and get the stuff out of him?
Well, I think you already said a lot of things that have never been said about Zappa.
That's right.
And all these things you were reading from the ads and also your talk for the Evergreens. I think those are amazing.
You like the Evergreens thing with him? Sounds like really Frank? Sounds like Frank?
Yes.
Yeah. But that ad, go ahead.
Seems like since Gail died, I've always been a little obsessed with Frank, but he's permeating my whole being. I wonder if there's a factor there. If she
I think so. I think there's a
yeah.
Because I think like he was making his musicians go beyond his limitations and play all the stars, force them to sing and perform. To gain his lights and
but what's Gail got to do with that?
No, you're doing the same with, for example, presenting the Evergreens.
Yeah.
You're forcing people to expand and go beyond their limitations of what they think is possible.
And with Zappa,
it's possible to communicate with the eternal.
Right.
Person.
Yeah. Good analogy. Yeah.
You're not limited to but we think we exist only when we are living, but
when we are leaving, you get good.
Yeah, alive. Alive.
We are leaving. Joyce would spell living, Leaving.
As entities, we cannot be destroyed. We are individuals that are there like the egg.
Solid, Jackson.
Always.
Here comes Frank.